Welcome to Saturday's Warrior. This is a reaction video, a little bit late, but to all the realignment action that happened, giving us the Big 16 and what seems like possibly the end of the Pac-12, looking at any solution it has to stay alive. The ACC ensuring that it is united, all the while Florida State is doing everything it possibly can to get out of the conference, and the Big Ten continuing to get bigger. So this is going to be my reaction to all of that. I was out in the wilderness. Had no service for most of Friday. This last weekend I was traveling and unavailable for most of the weekend. So now I've been able to, follow what I could on Twitter and sit and digest and get my thoughts together on all this action. So let's jump into it. So first off, I am not entirely thrilled about the way that college athletics is going with these super conferences, and that's something that I've been consistent on. Yes, it's worked out well for BYU because of all the shifting, that there was room made for them and they got into the Big 12, and I am really excited about that. But I don't know if I love seeing these traditional rivalries getting torn apart, even though we're seeing new or old rivalries being reunited now because there's been so much consolidation. I don't even know if we can say realignment anymore as much as consolidation. And seeing these conferences get so big that even the SEC, where at least they're all bordering states, I mean, they're no longer in the Southeast, and they have teams that don't really fit, but they just continue to expand outward. And the Big Ten going, adding even more teams from the West Coast. So it's wild, and it's exciting though. If this is the way it's going, and it is, there's no fighting it at this point. I'm glad BYU is where they are, and that the Big 12 was able to come out, a conference that looked like, it was basically left for dead. And now it's coming in very much so solidifying itself as the third power conference. And if the ACC does ever break up, well, it will eventually. The grant of rights does have an end date, even though it may not seem like it. If and when that ends early, that it seems like the Big 12 would be poised to get at least some major brands. And we've done videos talking about that and probably do others going forward. But it could be the third power conference. And, and talking about that, the brands they just added, I mean, they definitely added bigger brands. They've now, over the last couple weeks, added 4 Power 5 programs. Colorado was great because it was a former member, great market, kind of connected BYU to the rest of the conference. It seemed like a good fit. Very happy to be there. Even Arizona, everyone was thrilled about that. Also been struggling in football, but brings solid basketball. Another new state and a great brand as well as an old traditional rival with BYU. So that was great. Adding, there was a lot of talk about possibly adding Oregon and UW, and they'd see what happened. And honestly, I did not think that the Big Ten was going to expand anymore. I thought that they were set. They really had no need to move at this moment. Those brands would be available. I thought that they also would want to wait and see what happened with the ACC. But alas, they went for those brands, and I think any smoke of them potentially joining the Big 12 was really probably just a play to try to increase leverage with the Big Ten and try to put pressure on them to add them. And so I find it hard to believe they're ever really considering the Big Ten. I think they kind of had a sense of what was going on behind the scenes. And likewise, with it benefited the Big 12 as well to put pressure on Arizona State and Utah to move and say, hey, we're really looking at these other programs. Do you want to be the two that are left behind with those other guys, with the remainder of the last 4 of the Pac-12? And so it worked out well. I mean, because you had 2 in Utah and Arizona State, 2 other great brands, 2 other Power 5 programs, and really solidify your hold of a lot of the West. I mean, I would argue the four biggest brands are still going to the Big Ten, but then the Big 12 has everybody else. And the Holy War is, I don't know how it took me this long to get to that. That's probably the best thing, one of the best things at least coming out of this is the Holy War is reunited in conference. That's going to be exciting. And it's not just football. We're going to get BYU's continued to play Utah, but I imagine they'll be playing more, two basketball games every year and more matchups throughout the other sports. And so that is a huge benefit. And what's even better is that the Big 12 seems to have already turned on Utah because of the way that they've treated the conference when they were in the pack, and then coming that they're already acting like they're going to own the place. And you know what, there aren't the major brands that the pack had, that the Big Ten has, that Utah thinks they're getting into, but there is a lot more parity, and Utah is going to see that, and there's going to be transition. Not saying that they can't win or compete in the conference, just saying I don't think it's as easy as they're making it out to be. But so I am excited about that. Arizona State too. I mean, you think about it, BYU just a couple years ago, we beat Arizona, Utah, and Arizona State, and it's great going back and watching condensed games, highlights of those games, and reliving those moments, and thinking having those games all in conference now feels right. So, and you look at the map of this new Big 12, the 16 members, and you look at it, and for the most part, other than the outliers that are in the East Coast, really looks like a conference. You have everyone's kind of connected, and it feels like a pretty good fit. And so I do feel for our friends on the East Coast, because I remember what it felt like when BYU was the only team added in the West, and then you had Cincy and UCF making it a little bit easier on West Virginia, and they deserve that after all their years of long travel. So if it continues to grow into even bigger super conferences, I think there's some very quality brands that very well could find themselves in the Big 12 down the road, making that even easier for them. But yeah, so I'm happy. I think we got some solid brands, and really strengthens the conference. It's just the comments made by ASU and Utah, mostly fans on Twitter, but then also the was it AD or president, the AD of ASU, and his comments about not going to Morgantown, and just the way that they're starting off on this note already is just shocking to me. Not even trying to pretend that they want to be in the Big 12, and that they didn't just get saved from a life where they're merging with the Mountain West. And that's no shade on the Mountain West, but that's not the level at which they're at now, and certainly not financially. So it's bizarre to me. Even the comments from Utah, that they posted that I saw on the socials was, they had to throw this comment in there, and I should have had this queued up, and they even had to mention the AAU status and how they bring that to the Big 12. And for me, it's just, it's just this level of hubris that they still continue to bring and to the conference, a conference which otherwise had really good vibes. Even Colorado and Arizona seem really happy to come, and so we'll see. But it's good to know that we have solidarity with the rest of the conference in our dislike of Utah. We'll see if they end up coming around with the other fans. That's funny because ASU and Utah seem to like each other, which is fine because right now they're kind of on the outs. But anyway, I think overall, even though a lot of us are a little bit sour with the way that's happened, I think it's a great move, and it'll work out for the best. Even though Utah continues to feel like this is just a stepping stone to the Big Ten eventually. And we've got comments on that, and we'll get another video out on all of that. But and then Washington and Oregon in the Big Ten. Again, I mentioned this already. I did not think that was going to happen yet. That is that was a big shocker to me, really. And I was actually starting to come around to the thought that UW And it was not going to be Oregon, but UW and Stanford that got the invites because Oregon's not that great academically, despite barely being an AAU member, and Stanford certainly is. They're better fit. They bring a bigger market and a lot more money, and they're in a market where there's a lot more Big Ten alum, and so it just seemed like a better fit all around, not to mention their rivalry with Notre Dame. Just give them one more reason to come join the Big Ten. Hey, we can continue to consolidate and bring your rivals in-house. Come join us. And so I thought that was really interesting. They did end up going with Oregon. And I'm waiting to see, how the scheduling works out and how they approach that. Sounds like they potentially could go to 10-team conference games in football. So that could take some readjusting, which could work out because for BYU, with having Utah on the schedule next year as an out-of-conference game, move that hopefully to Thanksgiving weekend. We have a game open up in the spring. Boise State, or not in the spring, sorry, in September, in the beginning of the season. Boise State has Oregon on that slate. So if Oregon has to drop something, potentially BYU, they'd have to, one of the schools would have to shift a game around a week. But and I don't know how feasible that would be, but potentially they could align and BYU get Boise State again, which would be a lot of fun. So there's that as well. Let's see. I hit upon Big Ten, ACC. We'll see. And then the SEC, meanwhile, it looks like they're staying pat. I think they're probably not in any rush to expand anymore. I mean, they haven't even added Texas and OU yet. Have played a single game with them, and so I think they can wait out to see what happens with the ACC in potentially a few years or many more down the road. But anyway, so yeah, it's just been a wild weekend. So many things happen so quickly, and it's just amazing that not only did all this happen, but this was one of the popular theories from the get-go, one with all the realignment fans, sitting at home, just like me, just like many of the viewers, of trying to hypothesize and predict, okay, how is this going to play out? And so many people said it was going to play out this way, with Washington, Oregon going to the Big Ten, and the four corner schools going to the Big 12. And I was like, what? I could see some of this happening. It might end up being Colorado and, San Diego State or UConn or whatever, some much slimmed down version of this, and maybe those other schools to the Big Ten eventually down the road. But I did not think it was going to happen just like that, and then happen also so quickly. So it's just wild time in college sports. I hope that the Pac, whatever they do, not that I have too much sympathy, because they made this bed, and so and most of them are ending up in positions that they want to be in anyway. But for those remaining schools, especially Oregon State and Washington State, you feel for them a little bit. But it looks like there's a real potential that they could merge with the Mountain West and keep the Pac name, but and kind of pick and choose and kind of take the best of what's left of both conferences and bring it together, which would be fascinating. We'll see if they find a way to kind of force out some of the remaining Mountain West schools, like a San Jose State, which may not bring as much in, and they're also in a competing market with Stanford and Cal. So, or I don't know, but that would seem, for them to get in that position, get this lifeline, and have this be kind of the best possible solution, and then still kind of force some other teams out, would be a bummer for those schools. But their likely home would be Conference USA. So anyways, I don't know if, at this point, I never know if conference realignment is done. It seems like there's always something else about to happen, but I'm really anxious to see what happens with those Pac schools, just out of fascination to see how they're able to pull it off. If they're able to pull off a merger, I think that would be very interesting and great for, I think, all the schools involved with that. So anyway, I'm sure I forgot some things. Those are just kind of all my thoughts I was thinking about as I was driving this weekend, and really wanted to get off my chest. But I know everyone's been kind of going through this together and cathartically getting it out on Twitter or socials or whatever. So let me know in the comments, what are your thoughts on all this realignment? Do you like it? Do you think it played out well is it how you want to see it play out? Or what would you have liked to see differently? And what do you think is going to happen down the road? Just kind of lay it out there for me. Let me know all your thoughts after this wild week of college conference realignment. And we will be doing some more follow-up videos, a little more structured going forward. And so please give us a like and subscribe to the channel, and we will see you next time.